This week on the Storycraft Society, we're going to be doing some big things. I mean, literally, we're going to be making mountains, and then once we get that done, then we're going to get this thing painted up and starting to look a little closer to finished. Let's go. Welcome back to the Storycraft Society, everyone. My name is Garmin. This, of course, is Thursday, so that means we have another episode coming out. And this is going to be part 3 in our series on how to make a 3D map. Now, I'm doing it for my Dungeons & Dragons world, but I think that you could take any of these skills and use them to make a continental map of the United States or a world map of the whole Earth, I guess. So like I said, this is part 3 of working on this beautiful map right here. In part 1, we built our frame, we cut out our main landmass, and then we shaped the coastline. In part 2, we notched out all of our river valleys, we did our elevation changes, and we started to cut in our nameplates. So if you haven't checked those out, both of those will be linked in the description below. But this week, we're moving on to bigger and better things. I mean, literally bigger, because we're making mountains. Also, then after that, we're going to be putting paint on this thing, where a lot of people, I'm sure, think that paint is the final step of the process. It's actually not. There's a lot of fine detail stuff we have to do after that, but painting certainly is going to change the visual appearance of this more than maybe any other stage of the process. That's a lot of talking that I've done. Let's jump into it and start making our first thing, which is we need to make the plaster molds for our mountains. So like I said in the intro, we're going to be using plaster to make our mountains, but the problem is we need molds in order to make them. So what we're going to be using is heavy-duty aluminum foil. And what we're going to do to make a mold is fold it over. We're going to fold it over again. We're going to fold the ends down. Then we're going to take and fold them up like this. We're going to fold the ends over again, and I like to crimp them twice like that. So again, fold the end over, but then you pinch it back. And then now what you do is you pull the piece open like this, and that will make the general shape of your mountain. So this is really simple to do, honestly, and all the crinkles will get you all of your mountain edges. But this is going to be our basic mountain mold shape. Now we need to make a bunch more of those because these are then going to be, full mountain ranges. So let's get onto it. So one of the biggest challenges that I've found for working with these molds is that they are really difficult to stand up. So this is the best solution that I've found is you just take an old pizza box and just cut lines in it. And then the nice thing is that the bases of them just slide down in. They hold up nice and straight. And now when we go to pour our plaster in, they shouldn't fall over. Key word there is shouldn't fall over. Let's hope they don't. Let's go. So about 2 hours have gone by. That might be overkill to let this stuff dry, but I like to be safe rather than sorry. And now what we're going to do is start to break our mountains out of the mold. So what I do is I just take and pull at the tin foil kind of on the outside like that, and then turn it over and shake it. If it's not quite loose, I pull a little harder and then drop it. Once you pull them out, here is what the general shape of the mountain will look like. Now, you're gonna have little pieces like this, that's okay. I just break all those off. They come off really easy. You don't want those on there anyway because obviously it would make the tip of your mountains really brittle. But so you just kind of brush that off with your finger, and now you're gonna have all kinds of interesting mountain shapes like so. So I'm gonna break the rest of these out, and then I'm gonna start laying them out on the map. Okay, so we pulled out our reference map so that we know exactly where things need to go, and the mountains are starting to look good where they are. The one thing that we can notice is that there just isn't enough of them. So what this means is I'm gonna have to go back to my molds. I'm gonna have to make a couple more. I think one more run should do it, but we'll see. You always could start by making way more than you need. I just feel like it's a better use of my time to make a set, see what I need, and then just go one more time instead of either making way too many or making not enough, that sort of thing. But yeah, with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and get those knocked out, and then hopefully here in a few hours, we'll have a layout of mountains that we're really, really happy with. One thing that I really like about doing the secondary run of mountains with the same molds is as you work with the tinfoil molds, you can reshape them. Honestly, you're never gonna get the same set of mountains twice, even though you have one set of molds. For me, that's a good reason to try and do 2 runs of them. You're gonna get similar shapes that are like kind of predictable, but the mountains won't look exactly the same. All right, so I'm gonna get these poured, and hopefully the next thing that you'll see is a full layout of mountains. Okay, so with our layout now all figured out, I've moved all of my pieces around, and I've started to get comfortable here with how my layout is going to be. Now, the one thing to remember is we're going to be blending all this together with plaster. So any place where it looks like there isn't a whole lot of stuff, that is going to change. We're going to be widening the bases of a lot of these mountain areas. So the next thing we need to do now that we're happy with our layout of mountains here is we need to move over to our hot glue gun and get all of these glued in place. That'll be easy peasy. And then we'll move on to actually getting all this to make it look like it's one solid piece. Okay, so to start this, we want to get our plaster to kind of a like pancake batter consistency. And honestly, blending this is a lot like doing the rocks that we did in the Epic Hill video. You just want to dot a little bit of plaster out, and then you can just kind of take your finger and pat it and work it into place. So I'm just going to work up the edge of this mountain here, pushing the plaster into the crevices, and you really can't mess this up, honestly. It seems like it would be daunting, but just kind of run your finger around and make sure it looks natural, and that's all you got to do. All right, so once we had our plaster blended in so that our mountains looked a lot more natural, it was time to move on to putting on our base coat. So what I ended up using is the Blackmagic Craft base coat, which is a 50-50 mixture of black acrylic craft paint and matte Mod Podge. Now this goes over the entire piece. This goes over the masonite, the foam, and the plaster. And what this is gonna do is really lock everything together, 1, and 2, it gives everything this nice, even black coat. For me, this is like the project jump starter. It gives me kind of a hint of what the project is gonna look like once it's all finished, because everything is now a neutral color. Instead of looking like a whole bunch of different textures that all kind of don't go together, now it really starts to look at this point like a cohesive piece. But with all that said, it's now time to get onto the exciting part of this project, the part that's going to make this map jump out of the frame, and that's gonna be painting it up. So, got some colors to pick out, got some brushes to get, got a paint plan to figure out. Let's jump into it. So when we get to painting this thing, we're gonna be using a whole bunch of different, what I'd like to call color stations for each of the different types of features that the map has. So for example, we're gonna be using these 3 blues on the ocean. We're going to be using this kind of blue-green to a lighter blue-green for the rivers. We're gonna be using the browns up to this kind of like honey brown on the mountains, and then white for the snow-capped peaks on the couple of snow-capped peaks that I'm gonna put in here. Then we're gonna be doing a dark green to a light green for all of the grasslands, and then here is the tans that will all be for the coastline here. The way I like to work on any project like this is start at the lowest point first and work to the highest point. So what the order is going to be is rivers and ocean, followed up by the grasslands and coast. Then the last thing that we'll do is the mountains. So with all that said, let's jump into each stage of the process. Anybody who's been a fan of the channel for any length of time knows that painting is my least favorite and least confident part of my process. So what I decided to do over this painting montage is to give you 3 tips for this project that I think will really come in handy to both speed your process up and end up with the best looking result. So number 1 is be messy. Let colors from one section splash onto another section. If the green from the grass gets on the mountains, that's okay. If the blue from the water gets onto the coast, that's okay, because you can always go back up and tidy those up later. Taking the time to be super ultra cautious in every location really will just drive you mad, and it won't make you have the best time painting, first of all, and the result won't necessarily be any better. Also, nature has a lot of different colors, so why wouldn't there be a little bit of green on the mountains? It's not that big a deal. Number 2, the more colors you have, the better the transitions between the colors. So for example, if I was just to have one color of green and one color of brown, the area where the 2 colors meet would be the most obvious. But if you do 3 different colors of green and 3 different colors of brown, it blurs that line so much that you get these really, really nice transitions even up close. Obviously, the more colors you can put onto something in the same color palette, the better. Number 3, stippling is your friend. So I use this technique on the grass here. Basically, all you're doing is just getting your brush set up like it's going to be a dry brush, but then you take and poke your bristles straight down into the surface. Go light with this at first and then get more aggressive as you know there's not a whole lot of paint on your brush, and that will come out with some really cool textures that look a lot better than brush strokes. So those are my 3 tips. Now let's finish watching out this montage, and then I will see you at the outro. Look at this, so stinking sick. Let's go. I feel like every week we've jumped up in intensity at how much further along this project gets. Okay, I get it. Obviously, the more you work on the project, the more it moves along. I get it. That's not what I mean. What I mean is each step, even though it seems like it's the same amount of time and effort, it just makes this so much cooler. The mountains obviously are such a huge improvement. The color just makes it, I think. But all that said and done, we still have one more week where we're gonna be doing forests, we're gonna be finishing up our nameplates, and we're gonna be doing water effects, which I'll tell you, the water effects might be the biggest thing. I don't know. I feel like I say that every week. I keep saying like, this is gonna be the biggest thing. But every single step changes the look of this project by so much. But anyway, with all that said, hopefully you're enjoying this series. If you like this video, definitely leave it a like. Leave me a comment, say hi, say what you think of the series so far. Share this video with a friend. That helps a small YouTube channel out a ton, and I would love to see a whole bunch of new faces here. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We have a whole bunch of cool content already on the channel. Some Dungeons and Dragons stuff, some terrain building stuff. There's all kinds of stuff on there, so hopefully you'll find something that you like. But with that said, I have nothing else to say until next week. I am so excited to wrap this thing up. Seriously, I'm annoyingly excited. That's how excited I am. So with that said, thank you so much for watching, and until next week, I'll be seeing you. Look at this thing! Let's go!